Paul, I just
Hey,
want to say a nice background. Sorry about
oh,
that.
Thank you. Hey everyone, this is Carlo of 4GQ We have a very special interview today. First, real quick, introduce my co-host, Paul. You know him in the community as Cerebral Paul. But we have Alex, and Alex, I probably can't say your last name correctly. But if you want to tell the audience how to pronounce it.
Sure, it's Chuk. So the closest you could get to English would be Chuck, I guess.
Well, thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to talk to you and learn a little bit about your creative history. Can you tell us
Sure.
how you got started?
Um, well, I kind of got started with games at the same time I got started with film, which was in film school. Specifically, I went to LA Film School. Um, it was within these courses that were some of the first courses in film school where it's not so specific. You're talking about transmedia and about broader subjects, is when we also got into the conversation of video games. And so basically the transition happened first by getting together with a couple of friends on a school project. Then we found out something about something that was called game jams. Now I know a lot about them, but back then it was a new concept for me and my friends, and we kind of entered into this thing. It was a 48 hour game jam, and from that point on, like one of the friends was, well, actually, I have this story going on, and you have your story going on. Why don't we connect them, and why don't we try to do something more than, the 48-hour game jam? Because to be honest, we didn't know anything. Like we completely hit us in the head. Like we were like, what are we even doing? He had some programming experience. I had some animating experience, and so it was kind of out of the blue. And uh, what really started off was an investment. So it was 2014. PlayStation Experience just had their renewed PlayStation Experience annual, and they wanted to focus on indie games. So basically, a lot of investors and incubators were looking for brand new indie developers to get into the fold and kind of work with PlayStation on this brand new tour of indies. And that's what we got. We got this one year exclusivity deal with PlayStation, and the game called KLAUS started development seriously. And parallel to that, I was going to film school and shooting. Started continuing shooting short films. Like LA Film School is a crazy hands-on school, so you don't spend that much time like lecturing. You spend more time shooting and doing. And as you mentioned previously, you had some people from there. There were professors. Everybody's an active teacher, so they are in the industry, and that kind of had me busy all over. But those two things happening at the same time actually helped each other because some of the ideas we got for the game came straight up from the lectures and the short films we made and the films we were watching at the time.
Oh wow. So it sounds like as soon as you got right into LA Film School, or as soon as you started studying, it was kind of like you had your passion already set. You had a mix on short films, and you had an idea in the video game industry what you wanted to do. And like you said, at that time there was a big opening for indie games. It started to
Mhm.
explode a little bit, and platforms were looking for more indie games to fill up the library. So it was like a perfect time. And once you saw that with the PlayStation experience and you made your first game, did you at that time pretty much shift more into the video game space, or did you still continue splitting your time equally between filming and and games?
Yeah, that's a good question because it was gradual at first. But once we started production, which is where you start working on your like real versions of the game, like the alphas and the betas, is where the focus completely shifted towards towards the game, because also our roles expanded as development. development stages went by, we had to do marketing and QA, something we, especially the second thing, marketing is one thing. You can imagine yourself talking about your product. It's a kind of more natural soft skills thing. But then we started to think about quality assurance, and like our game has to go through all these loops to reach gold status, so it can PlayStation can accept it onto its store and sell it, which sounds easy, but it's like some of these things that had to preoccupy more time than usual because it was something we didn't know about. Luckily, the investors helped us with this, but at some point, especially where we were gearing out towards release, which was 2016, is where we kind of threw all of us, all four of us, kind of threw all our uh, um, uh, you know, all our effort went into the game. And for a couple of months after that too, it was complete focus on marketing the game, uh, interviews, expos, like PAX East, PAX West, E3, uh, um, rest in peace, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
sorry to hear. And so so we did these things where we had to detach from films, and so it was until like 6 months after release where we kind of, started to go back into, everyone was like, okay, we went through this huge shock of a system, and this thing is still, we have to keep take care of it. We were trying to make more money out of it, but at the same time, it's like we were burned out, and we went through this thing that kind of was a trial by fire thing. And so we actually immediately, not everyone, but me and another colleague slash friend, my best friend Chitich, we decided to make a documentary because we were like, we have some time now. We don't have much to do. We could switch into a new video game immediately. But that kind of brought us this whole like, oh shit, we're gonna be in this thing again for a couple of years. So we switched. We knew at that point, we finished film school. Um, I got into, shooting ads. Another friend was doing mostly music videos, and then even got into the feature game. But we also had a bit of a split up after those 6 months, due to, when you open a business with close friends, and
Mhm.
percentages come into question. um, and it's not always easy split, and it's not always a friendly split. So uh, yeah, pretty much had to kind of de-stress by making movies after making the game.
Now that brings me to an interesting question. And I'm just getting into filmmaking as well. And I find it very enjoyable so far. I haven't reached any stress levels yet.
Okay,
So from your
but
experience, I want to ask you, it sounds like, when you work when you start your own indie game, it could be very stressful with friends. And I've heard those stories before too. So did you have the same stress with filming as well, or did you find filming more relaxing for yourself?
um, with this is a little bit like therapy now, because that's a great personal like question to ask yourself. Yeah, uh, actually, yes, like a lot less stress in making movies than in games for me personally, because of the process we went through with film. There was never this expect, like it didn't come into film school and was like, here's a bunch of money, make this and make money for me, and do this until and so like it was about the process. We never were serious. We never really made a serious film or anything before that. It was short films, which you can obsess over, but you're done in a couple of months. But with a game or a feature film, your process is your at least a year or more. And that's where the stress levels came for me, or disappeared, and then reappeared again, but in a good way. Obviously, not every part of the process is an enjoyable one. And this happened with the documentary as well. Like, when time comes for certain things, you realize you're not an actual jack of all trades. You like I'm not good at quality assurance. Like, making sure I communicate with these people like I'm supposed to. Uh, I am better at maybe like marketing my own game or something like that. Like you find your things in it, but really, I did find the stress levels once we were doing that documentary more because it was more of it was also our own money that we use for most of the production. So that would make it sound like it's more stressful because it's like I'm spending my own money, but having other people waiting for profit is a bit more stressful, I would say. And now in Ubisoft, it's it's in the mid ground for me because I'm not a stakeholder of a size of a of a CEO or or the creative director, so I'm not going to be you know, so stressed that like, this is everything's on the line, but at the same time, I am stressed. Like once the trailer dropped, it was a little bit of a surreal moment because we've been working on this thing for a bit, and that all the stress that I had then will kind of disappeared. Now in the last couple of days, it came back, but it's okay.
Well, yeah, I would think because now it's real because now the public has seen it. Now you now eyes are on you, baby. You
Yeah, exactly,
know.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
we know eyes all over the internet is now on it. Um, but first of all, congratulations on getting to work on one of
Thanks.
probably the best franchises in video game history. I have a true love for Assassin's Creed going back to, you know, Ezio, and I love the whole storyline. So fantastic to everybody that's ever worked on an Assassin's Creed game. Um, but before we kind of like go into the video, I do want to ask you one question as
Hmm.
a filmmaker, and this might throw off the interview a little bit. So I'm sorry. Do you have a
Go
favorite
ahead.
camera? Like when you film, do you have a preference?
If I can choose, especially after the documentary experience, the Alexa Mini is a great camera. Obviously, it's like it is well, not it's not the main industry's choice. It's the actual Alexa, but I love the RE company. I mean, I had worked on a lot of their cameras. Also, the Sony X7 is a great camera for just shooting on the run. So these are the cameras I like more. So they're a bit more mobile, but they can accommodate a wide range of lenses, and with adapters, it's it's a game over as far as like what you need. But I also have some other like favorites. Like I have to shout out to the Panasonic GH5. It's one of the most versatile cameras ever. Like if you're starting out, well now it's some now they have a mirrorless version and whatever. But if you're starting out, like that's such a great camera to have as because you can actually afford it and have it with you, and it's such a great camera. And I still have it somewhere here, but don't use it that much anymore. But I think about it way more than you would think. Like sometimes it's on my mind a lot because it's a great camera, and yeah, those three, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I'm starting out the Canon R5C, and I don't know a
Nice.
lot about it.
Mhm.
So I want to get your opinion, and I heard a lot of great things about the Panasonics. A lot of people love them. Um,
Yeah, sorry, but
oh no.
Canons are great. Like I've worked again, like I haven't worked on these smaller, small. I haven't worked on DSLRs or mirrorlesses in a bit. But uh, Canon it was always great. Like even when we start, one of my first short film was on a 5D, which is a legendary DSLR,
Yeah.
and the color, I still think it's kind of color wise to me, it's the best. Um, but yeah, the one you got, I guess it's one of the mirrorless ones, the first mirrorless. Well, not the first ones, but the like on the level of the 5D, I guess. A great camera. Like, what kind? Have you been doing some specific stuff, or are you experimenting? Or are you
Uh,
doing?
Experimenting so far. I've been getting here in Florida, been getting a lot of wildlife with alligators. And
Okay.
then I'm covering a lot of conventions now. So we're making a project with different convention centers, and it's gonna turn into like a docu-series. So
Cool.
it's gonna be interesting because it's my first time. So it might not come out right the first time, but
It probably isn't gonna come out like you want it to, but that's also great because
Yeah.
what that's cinema is so great because of that. Film is so great because of that. There's less of that in video games, is like the experimentation factor of it. Because it's a, even you're shooting digital, whatever, it's all very analog because you're there, and so a lot of magic can happen. It's in video games, this magic happens in different ways, but I think you're gonna have a great journey shooting these things. I think at the end of the day, if you're gonna like have a series of things, especially on animals and wildlife and stuff like that, consistency is key, and having a ton of footage and being on top of this is where it comes down to editing, your
Yeah.
editing game has to be on point, especially if you're doing documentary stuff. Remember, we shot about 215 hours when we had to edit a 2 hour movie. So it's a 1 to 10 kind of ratio of shot
Mhm.
footage to done material and the assembly part. So
Yeah.
like if you're shooting documentary, assembly is the most important thing. I would say it's even more important than editing because you got to organize yourself and know your B-roll footage, where everything is, and you have a lot of similar shots also, but with different vibes, and like the organization part of it is can be nuts because documentaries are that way. A lot of
Yeah.
shot footage.
It's funny. People a lot of times don't realize the ratio between what you shoot and what you use because even
Mm.
back before there were digital cameras, I've done photography pretty much all my life. And the rule was for every 30 pictures you took, maybe three of them were usable. It's like,
That's a good rule, yeah. Yeah, that's a good rule. I mean, sure. Yeah, because you can't know like
right.
you just keep shooting and shooting.
Yeah.
That's where the video games have an advantage. You can kind of stuck yourself in one moment in time
Mm,
in video games and kind
yeah.
of mull over it and make sure there's no mistakes. But once you shoot something and you're done with it and you move on, and that's what you had. And there's no going back and changing it unless you do reshoots, which
Right.
cost, whether you're doing it by yourself or whatever, you still have to go out there at least and do it. So
Or
yeah,
and we
that's
hear we hear movies that do that too. They have to do reshoots, but the actor in some cases has grown older, or the actor the hair is different, so they have to deal with all that weird stuff. You know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is weird. I mean, haven't never had experience where I had to do like shoots in between, where it was like over a year, and where people, and it
Yeah.
was maybe with kids who are
Yeah.
more who can change in that time period. But like I know, like anytime we read or like that's I really appreciate, like Boyhood, which is such a crazy movie to see,
Yeah.
like actually shooting this kid for his whole life, and then you have this natural feeling of it. But yeah, like time is of the essence. I have to do a shout out to a book here because you mentioned it. It's in between what you shoot and like film is sculpting with time, and it's a great book by Andrei Tarkovsky, the legendary Russian director. Did Stalker, and he has this book, Sculpting in Time, because film is sculpting with time. You're taking time, you're bending it to your will, and kind of telling a story with that. So that's another shout out. If you can access that book, I highly recommend.
I will definitely try to find that. I appreciate your advice already. And, getting back to the video game side, when you transitioned from, you did your documentary now, you have experience making your indie game. When did you find yourself going towards the AAA game industry? When did you find yourself moving into that career?
Well, that was kind of when I came back to Europe, because most of the documentary was shot in France and Italy. So I went back home to Serbia to do the editing. It's much cheaper, and it was, just made more sense to do it that way. That was also it was during editing that COVID started. So we also got stuck there. It was sorry, uh, kind of kind of yeah. So it was during that time where we were finishing up with the documentary, and we were like, you know, we're not at a level. We didn't make a huge video game where we could live off it for years, or we didn't sell off a documentary for like Netflix. So we had to do a next thing. We kind of went separate ways for a bit. Well, we did go separate ways, and I got into advertising as a creative director. So shooting a bunch of commercials in between, and it was basically like a headhunt happened because there's a Ubisoft in Belgrade, and they were a user experience specific team studio, and I was like the stars kind of collided or connected, and I immediately transferred to Ubisoft to see like what this experience is like. I was, promised to work on great experiences and have a decent amount of control over what we do, and working with many studios, especially Canadian studios, uh, Quebec and Montreal, and then working with French studios like Ubisoft Annecy, or really, really like attracted me right away. So it was mostly like, this job just appeared. And I took the bait, and I'm glad I did.
And now you're working on one of the biggest games coming out.
Yeah, yeah. Uh yeah, that itself is a story, like, 'cause when before we started AC, uh I was about to get transferred to a much smaller project. That I can't even talk about because that one hasn't been announced. But I was like happy. I'm like going to a smaller project. Oh, like it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be a little like my previous experience. And then, because Ubisoft is a corporation, and it's like things happen all the time. I was like, actually, you're not going to that small video game. You're going to something else, and it's Assassin's Creed Red at the time. And at the time before it was announced properly. Um, Now this is where it comes through. There was other things were also were talked about, which I can't talk about right now, but they're all Assassin's Creed related. And I have to admit, it was for a good 2 months, I didn't know like what was I was getting into. You know, I got because I worked on Riders Republic before that. Um, it's another great game if you like extreme sports, and it's a Ubisoft game. And so I thought I was a good start in Ubisoft, but I didn't expect to actually go on their biggest IP right away. And it delivered. The experience delivers so far. Now we're at very close to release, and um, I'm still kind of not completely aware of of the fact that I'm working on Assassin's Creed.
Now, were you an Assassin's Creed fan before you got this
Massive, massive. I can remember like the first time I played it, like specifically in New York, at my friend's his father's place. He had a PlayStation 3, and it was the first Assassin's Creed was out. And I was like, I heard about this game. I don't have the PlayStation 3, but he helped me play it. Didn't let me play it too much because he didn't want me to overwrite his save file. That's how much I remember. Because he was like, don't kill. You can walk around and like look at the world and like jump around, but don't kill these people because they're my targets. I'm like, wow, this is crazy game. It's a crazy game. It was like a full open world game back then.
Yeah.
The only other studio doing games of that size was Rockstar with GTA.
Mm.
So I was a fan from day one. And from that day, it was like everyone I talked to was like, this game needs to be set in Japan one day, you know? Um, because it's perfect to be set in Japan, like assassins and shinobis
Yeah.
go so well together. And now we're here.
It sounds kind of like Mirror's My thing. The weekend it came out originally, I went
Hmm.
back home in California to visit, and a friend of mine had I got the game. I took it to his house, and that's all I did for like 3 days out of my visit. I went through the
Nice,
entire game. I'm like, leave me alone. I'm playing. You know. Yeah, it's nice
nice.
to see you too. Bring food back with you. You know.
It's very immersive, no? Like
Yeah,
it's
it is. It really is.
yeah. So my love is for the game was and is huge. I haven't played all of them from start to finish, but I played a lot of them. Obviously, the Ezio trilogy I'm
Right.
very partial to because Ezio is a legendary character. But I like this new generation of ACs
Right.
also, and I like characters like Bayek and Alexandra. But y- people are gonna love Naoe and Yasuke as much as any one of them. So
Yeah.
looking forward to
I
that.
know I'm looking forward to it. So,
I
That was
I've
really
had I've had too much time on my hands because I beat every single one of them.
nice,
Um,
nice.
so I've had way too much time on my hands. But I think of the old ones. I think Brotherhood, and then on the newer end, I would think for me, ah, man, I did like you know what? I like a lot of the newer style ones, I can't lie. I like Syndicate, I like Odyssey. And I'm really looking forward to this one. I can't
Mhm.
wait. From what we've seen publicly,
right.
I am super excited for it
Yep.
just because the way that all of you at Ubisoft do Assassin's Creed, everybody does it so well, whether it's the narration, the script writing, the immersion into the world. You feel like you're really fighting a battle. At least in everyone that I've played personally, I felt like I was
Mhm.
personally taking on the Templars. Like I
Mhm.
really felt like there was this big thing
Yeah.
at hand, and,
Yeah.
and it's so cool how you guys do it.
I'm super glad to hear that. Like it's again, like my ownership of this game is like what it is, like a AP on UX. But like to hear that, that's great. I'm glad you're still in love with the franchise. Um, I am still a fan. Like I'm gonna be honest, like part of what I have to do is play the build often. But what I actually do is I'm like, I was referencing how my friend was like, don't play the game like seriously, just walk
Right.
around and run. That's basically what I'm doing when I'm like playing the game, so I don't spoil it for myself, even though I have many things as have been spoiled for me. But I try not to actually play through the whole build and like
Mhm.
see the whole narrative connected because I want to be surprised a bit too, when it comes
Yeah.
out, like because it is a huge game. It's going to be the biggest one so far.
Wow.
Wow.
That says a
So
lot. That really says a lot.
so I can't wait for it too. Like as a fan, like I can't wait. I'm gonna be a day one player for sure.
Yep. I know that for me, I love the original. I like Enzio's story. I liked for a while that kind of fell out of it, but I like Black Flag. I gotta say the ship fighting in Black Flag. I was all in at that point. I'm like, okay, they did something amazing here.
Black Flag is one of those fan favorites, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
And
I don't know a single person that doesn't love it. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna be honest here. The first two times I played it, I didn't like it as much as Assassin's Creed
Okay.
3, but the third playthrough, I fell in love with it. I played that one three times until I liked it.
Okay. Okay.
So
Appreciate that.
I was
Whatever it
Third time's
dedicated.
a
takes,
charm.
you still
Yes.
played it 3 times. So yeah. And then
Nice.
I still need to get through Mirage. I have some, some my ability to play with my hand controls and stuff is a little difficult. So parts of Mirage are difficult, but I love Mirage because it is a callback to the older games a little bit. And then
Well,
I'm really looking forward to this. Yeah.
cool. Well, I know that we actually we often do a lot of our mandates are often accessibility mandates too. Like, and I know the APM producers on Mirage, they are in Belgrade as well. They're now on a new project in the AC, something that you're gonna like a lot for sure when you hear about it, Paul. But that's something I can't talk
Yeah.
about. But what I can talk about though is that Mirage, I think it has a lot of accessibility. That's something
Right.
that Ubisoft has been really like focusing on recently, and it's something I never thought about. You know, we're talking about creativity and all these like things like delivering of huge mandates, like of the
Yeah.
gameplay and everything that's important to you. But it's something that Ubisoft has really been focusing on is being at the top of the game in accessibility. So
Yep.
not just, easy, normal or hard modes, but every single part from all kind of colorblind things to all kind of control schemes to
Yeah.
all kind of literally trying to make the most customizable experience you can have for every kind of so
Yep.
everybody can enjoy it. Because I think games have one small thing that it's a little bit toxic. It's like this, it's the competitor part of it. You know,
Yeah.
like the better the game you are, like the more like prestige you have or whatever.
Mhm.
And like don't play games and like if you're playing games and easy and like
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is um, I'm a narrative kind of guy. I love the narrative in games. I think all Assassin's Creed are about the narratives, and
Yep.
it's like I think people should be able to experience them without having to like bend themselves over to actually complete them.
Yep.
So like look out also for Red. It's gonna be very accessible.
Which I'm glad to hear, and I will definitely be, because something you said it rings true, and we've spoken to other developers too. When you start talking about accessibility, they will honestly say, "I never thought about that. That was never part of my. It was always about the gameplay, about how it looks, but they never thought about, okay, what can I do to make this more playable by more people? Because
Exactly.
it's not part of it. And slowly, especially on the Microsoft side, they've really been pushing that side of it over the last 10 years or so. So and I gotta say, I've been one of the bigger mouths. you know what about
Nice.
me, what about me?
Yeah, you
So
should, as you should.
yeah.
I mean, everybody should play games, and you should be able to play games until like
Yep.
until the end of your life. Like it's the game is not anymore, like
No.
these things we had in the 90s. It's for like kids or like people of this age in that game. Games are legit art. They're trailing a little bit behind. It's a very funny situation is that like games make more money than like the film industry.
Yep.
Like you have GTA 5 that made more money than any piece of media
Right.
in history of the entertainment business industry as a whole of any industry. But culturally, it still hasn't been as closely as impactful as movies. Movies still like carry so much weight when like games like to attach themselves. You have all these like game adaptations getting made now, and now
Yeah.
something I like to call like we're entering the golden age of adaptations. I think finally we're for the first time in history we're getting good game adaptations like TV shows. Cyberpunk had that great anime Edge Runners, and there was the Arcane for the Arcane TV show, which is a great anime show. So I think this is also bringing like prolonging the thing. It's like
Yeah.
the games need this cultural validity in order to really gain its prominence. And for that to happen, everybody needs to play it. Like everybody needs to play it. All ages need to play it, and we need to have like people like you too, like me too. I intend to play games for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not gonna be like, okay, now I'm too old to play games. Like I can't imagine myself actually thinking that or saying that. So so
No,
I'm really
I'm 57, and I don't see myself slowing down and going, okay, I'm done. You know.
yeah. I don't think you should be close to it, man. Like I mean, like
And I am glad to hear you say, because you said, even if you play a game on easy, there is no shame in that. That's what you got to do to play the game. Play the game on easy. You know.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's your
Yeah.
experience.
Yep.
I think, both of you said some great things here, especially with accessibility and playing the games. And I think that whoever you are and however you want to play, you should be able to do that. If your style is to play on easy to get the story, then go for it. If your style is that you want to play on hard to have the challenge and constantly, try to up yourself, do that. But I think, I think that when people play games, they should just do it for the fun because they love the game and not because they have to
Exactly.
want to compete with their best friend next door. And, it's not about that. Like, you want to do that, go to Space Invaders at the arcade and get your name on the scoreboard, the old
Yeah.
days. But um no, and I really love where modern gaming is going. I think that the worlds that are being built is being built from so many different perspectives and cultures and diversities that there's something in every game almost now for everybody. Like,
Hmm.
everybody can relate to something in a video game. And you mentioned that the video game industry, especially GTA 5, has surpassed Hollywood and entertainment as far as sales. And we also see the video game industry coming back to Hollywood and saying, listen, we have some really great stories, and you guys could probably use this and make some great worlds out of our stories and collaborate with us. And we've seen that with the television shows like Last of Us. We've seen that with
Hmm.
Fallout. And I'm sure there's
Amazing
going to be
shows.
excellent, and
Definitely.
we're gonna see more going forward, I'm sure. Um, and hint, hint, if anybody in the game industry or Ubisoft watches this, I would love one day to see like a fantastic Assassin's Creed series somewhere. Like, I would just, as a fan, I think a lot of fans would. So that's something we all hope for.
I'm sure this is not something I don't even know about because like this part is I know is handled like a little bit by Ubisoft like productions that are in LA and then by whichever production company they're gonna work with. But I know there was some speak of like going there, and I hope it's true. And I can't wait for the new information for
Yeah.
any information to come out of it because I agree. Like that's what I started up bit with the when we were talking even before the interview started, like there's this cinematicness that kind of prevails, and maybe it should get a new name as things
Mhm.
evolve. But it's kind of this thing that can translate from video games to movies to video games to like in between them because like the language is not, like Fallout is amazing example, like even better than Last of Us because it's like they gamified or movified certain game conventions within the thing. Like you have your stim pack, and so it's this super drug like that kind of fixes you up right away. Like it works like it does in the video game. It doesn't work like it's not just like some painkiller that
Right.
or bandage that you put around your head or the same way like the way they talk or the way they explore the
Mhm.
vaults and it's so like the game but with movie language
Yeah.
with TV language, and that's where this like kind of the lines that were blurred that we mentioned, which I'm expecting an explosion of. That's why I think it's golden age of adaptations is because of these two shows you mentioned. I think they did amazing jobs. I hope we do an amazing job of it too when it comes time to it, because I think it needs to be there. That's how you garner more people. Also, that's how you expand the world, as you said. Like you can actually talk to these, and then you have passionate people. Like now, you have people direct, like Jonathan Nolan. He worked on he made Fallout, and he's a Fallout fan. He played Fallout,
Yeah.
so now you're getting that too. You're getting filmmakers that are game fans and game fans that are
Right.
game makers that are film fans.
Yeah.
Oh, Joe Dumont, the creative director for Shadows, he's a huge movie fan, and huge narrative fan. And without this love for this for the cinema for cinema, the game wouldn't be what it is. Because as you already saw in the trailers and in the footage that was shown, a lot of influences from movies, from Kurosawa, from yeah, we saw the way some targets are this. There was that one gameplay, the lengthy one with the gameplay with how you handle a target.
Yeah.
And so we saw both Naoe and Yasuke do their targets. And when they kill them, there's this, it goes black and white, and then this slash of red
Yeah.
blood. It comes out. I remember now I can actually mention it, talk about it, but remember when there was brainstorming and talking about this with Joe, it was like, wow, maybe we can do this thing, like, because it's like a little bit like Kill Bill, a little bit Kurosawa, and this is where the ideas come from,
Yeah. Yeah, you can
so
definitely see the Kurosawa influence and stuff
mhm,
like that. Yeah.
for sure, they're there, and as I said again, like it's fans feeding off
Yep.
fans, and they're like,
Yep. And one thing you mentioned too was how it can expand the world of the game. That's which to me is exactly what Fallout did. Fallout did that like no other
Yeah,
adaptation did because you were in the same land, you were in the same, universe as it were, but it wasn't a
exactly.
story we'd seen before. There was no connection really to any of the story we'd seen before. It told its own greater story that helped expand on the lore of what we know of Fallout. And
Yeah,
that to me, that's how for me that's how come it succeeded as well as it did. It
yeah.
wasn't telling us a story that we'd already been through. You know.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
like from a business perspective, I remember reading 7,000% rise in Fallout 4 sales after the show.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm one of them because I went back and I was like, I had to play to the game and I'm like making a new character for the
Mhm.
50th time already.
Yeah.
And I missed some of the
Yeah.
DLC, so I bought it. But it's like
Yeah.
that's literally how it's working. It's
Yeah.
healthy kind of consumerism because you know you, you're just chasing this world that's being
Yep.
built in front of you. And Fallout is very special in this way because they decided to make this like a sequel. Like
Yeah.
it, if you played 4 and 3, they don't really talk about much of the stuff from these previous games,
Right.
but it's kind of there in the
Yeah.
background. And I don't want to spoil it for you, Carlo, if you haven't watched the whole thing. But the last shot of the show,
Yeah.
or Paul, I don't know if
I've
you.
I've seen the whole thing. Yeah.
We,
Okay,
yeah, we've
so
seen the whole thing.
yeah, so the last shot, it is for that's my favorite game, by the
Yeah.
way. The final shot of that show is my favorite game, and so the it's continuity of the
Yeah.
games themselves. It's not just an adaptation, and
Yeah.
I think that was very bold to do that. And personally, if I was to be asked like how would you do Assassin's Creed, I would do it in a similar way. Like I would like the games actually happened, the things in the games happen, and still exists in the world of the movies or the TV
Yep.
shows. So it's also exciting because of that, the continuity and the
Yep.
world. Yeah, it's
And
very
the nice
cool.
thing, one thing I've always liked about Assassin's Creed, always drew me in, is all the stories have been drawn from actual historic events.
Mm,
They actually did a
Like
lot of research
it's
into
yeah.
certain aspects of the Templars and the things that happened back then, and even the American Revolution and the things that happened back then. There's a lot of little tie-ins, little latches into the fact that make it more real. So I've always liked that part.
I really love the historical fiction take that Assassin's Creed does. And one of the things and Assassin's Creed 3, okay, I know a lot of people might disagree with me out there, but it is one of my favorite out of the whole series. Like that is one of my favorites. And I loved it. And it's one of the silliest reasons why I love that game. I first off, I do love the history of the Revolutionary War. But what I found really interesting towards the end of the game, and I believe it was in the DLC, you could play bocce ball at the end of it. And it really took a twist on, you know, and again, I'm going to state this so people don't get this twisted. It's historical fiction, but it really took a twist on like George Washington. And that just kind of blew my mind and said, wow, this is a great alternate history take. Like
hmm
I've never seen this anywhere else before that was this immersive. Like I'm sure there's been books here and there, but nothing that just made me feel like I was part of that story. And Assassin's Creed 3 did that for me. Like it really put me there.
Yeah. My position on 3 is literally like I love it now, but I had it like you with 4. So I tried it a couple of times, and I was like, I love the verticality of Assassin's Creed. I like the cities, and like I don't know if I want to be in the forest. But then it actually grew on me because of that. I think it's one of the best games that uses its history and it's also historical characters. Like Benjamin Franklin's great in that game, and like the DLC with King George Washington and these things, and like the bocce ball and these details. It
Yeah.
makes you feel the history in a way like it's almost like a documentary was shot back then, and you can see these smaller moments too. Like these are people also, like they're not just bigger than life characters,
Yeah.
which they are, but they're also people, and like there's some other like just very human like stuff in it. And that the details is what
Yeah.
makes these games. And the history, again, I have to call it out. The historians working on these games and the who we work with is they're geniuses in their fields. I mean, it's some of the best you can get in when you're discussing history.
Yeah.
Like what these people that we worked on with in Japan and everything that's coming out of it is just it's crazy. Like kanji artists, even like thinking of like what goes behind the kanji and like how shadows is written in kanji and like every small detail has been talked about. And I think you're gonna see some details like that, like bocce ball. Remember that
Mm.
when you're playing
Yeah.
shadows, because you're gonna have those moments that are gonna kind of tie you to Japan. I think in a way that people haven't been in games so far. I know we have Ghost of Tsushima and these beautiful Japanese games, but they're more like on style side and fantasy side and uh, less of that like uh, pure historical details that actually connect you to these people. And there's been some discourse about Yasuke. Like I've been like obviously like kind of obsessed over following trailers and stuff like that and how people react. But Yasuke is really interesting because it's the first historical character that Ubisoft has done as a protagonist. Um, so far, every protagonist has been a made-up character, while the historical characters were NPCs. Yasuke is the first real character, so that's something I'm looking forward to seeing how people react and seeing myself react also because he's the first like real person there that we anchored ourselves to. He was a retainer samurai for Oda Nobunaga, and uh, not huge amounts of information is available for him of him, but that's what made him such a compelling protagonist because you can kind of fill in the blanks
Right.
with the rest, and it's fun. And as
And
you
like I
saw
said,
in the
it ties it to reality, which makes it more interesting.
yeah.
It ties just like one of my favorite things of all the games is when you come up on a big building and it gives you a big, you can give you a big background
Mhm,
information. The basilica, the arenas, and it gives
mhm.
you all that historical information. So if you really want to learn that stuff, it's there. And then later
Yep,
on, you're doing stuff, and you're like, "Oh wait, I know about this. I heard about this place." Yeah,
yep.
so I've always liked that about the Assassin's Creed games. Yeah. So I am
I'm
looking
glad that's
forward to
all.
the Japanese side of it because that if you guys did that, I mean, I'm going to be reading everything that comes up on my screen. Yeah,
Hey,
to
I
learn a
I
little bit
think we
about the
did.
culture. Yeah.
I think we did because I have a stack of books here that I had to get like once we got into production. So I was like, I have to find out more about like real Japan and the real
Yeah.
16th century Japan because like we have all these
Right. Right.
like depending on how much you know, it's whatever. But I didn't know much beyond my preconceived notions of like what I get from little bits and
Right.
and then like anime and then like movies like I love Kurosawa, obviously, but but because it's a video game and Carlo, it's what you mentioned of the minute details. It's what really uh like was kind of revelation for me here. It's like Japan is so fascinating. Its history is so fascinating because they were like this very closed state for a very long time, and then they opened up, and then they had a lot of success, but a lot of pitfalls because of that. So they closed back up, had this like crazy, crazy thing going on, and now you probably seen or Shinobi the new FX show. It's like for us that's crazy good timing, you
Yeah.
know. We're really glad that show came out because it kind of also reignited from a show slash movie perspective love for Japan. Blue Eye Samurai on Netflix, like these kinds of things that take place in Japan have really like helped us motivate us and but also kind of make everything real. Like, you know, the hype is here, and it's really great to hear you two guys uh hear such great things about AC, your experiences with it, and also that you're hyped as I am for the release.
And one thing I do want to add on and thank everyone at Ubisoft for this, all the creative artists out there and the digital artists, is that there's something that I really appreciate that Ubisoft does well. And it's the fact that we live right now in our world. Our world is so industrialized and we don't see as much as nature as, man would have seen at one time. Everything's so built up, different types of houses, apartments. But when you go into a world in an Ubisoft open world game, like the nature is just so fantastic.
Mhm.
And it kind of makes you wonder, like, if I was to stare at a forest or stare at a lake, would it have been this pristine and this clean and this awesome? Like, it's just mind blowing how well it's done in the games. So I do want to congratulate everybody on that. I think Ubisoft does a fantastic job with that. One of the best
Yeah.
with it.
Environmental artists for this one have kicked it out, like have taken it to the next level. Part of it was so this I can talk about, like you saw if you've seen this part, but if you haven't, um I propose you check it out because nature-wise, it's the first time we're gonna do seasons. So there's gonna be a whole lot more to the dimensions of nature and how you experience it because of the change of the seasons.
Nice.
And they are not just the static changes, you know, it's like whatever you would think a new season brings. So I think there's going to be more of that in Red. And yeah, like the environmental artists, the level artists, art in general is a Ubisoft strength for sure.
I remember the first time in the first game, the first time you go up on a high spot and he does the 360 around the
Hmm.
area. I was just jaw dropping, and that was 20
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I know that we're getting close to the end. But one thing I do want to ask you so that you can explain it to the audience and other people may watching at home is that when it comes to being an associate producer at a AAA studio, could you kind of generalize and explain what that role is like for people out there?
Yeah, sure. Um, but that role like changes between the production stages of the game. So it depends. If you're a lucky AP, you're going to be there from pre-production, or even before pre-production. You're going to be involved in the negotiation stages. So in those stages, you talk to other APs, basically about staffing, budgets, needs for specific things. In this case, we are UI, UX experts. So we think about the whole user experience, which attaches to user interface as well. So everything 2D on screen, like, you know, that's like as me specifically as an AP is what I'm working with. So the stage after that is pre-production, is where we basically iterate a lot. Um, we as APs are able to basically staff and like experiment a bit with staffing and like things we can work on. For example, I can't talk about specific mandates we got, but we have a specific mandate, but we had on Shadows that when it was pre-production before we started going to alpha, that was it was a very relaxed mandate, and so you could play more with it. And then as an AP, my position here was literally organizing brainstorms, syncs, and working on a timeline uh, for the rest of the game. So how it's going to look once we get into pre-production hits, and once we want to get into pre-production, it gets a bit more dry. We're basically handling the budgets day in, day out, and diverting them into. We work with a tool called Jira. It's a very, very important tool for us. I think every AAA company uses it for production. It's what keeps us alive, because there's so many systems that we work with, and that we are so codependent with each other. Like UX is codependent with the progression systems, which are codependent with gameplay systems, which are codependent with 3C, which is, camera and movement. And so um, e- everything needs to be tracked. And so big part of my job is communication with other APs, making sure that we're on the same timeline or a similar timeline, that we can match up as much as possible. There's a certain stack of things, how it happens. So UX, UI is usually one of the last things to get implemented, because it's an umbrella system. So it has to be part of everything. And you need to have problems figured out on all the other ones. So once UI is introduced, it doesn't screw up the rest. So it is also just basically constantly communicating between teams and connecting teams. Sometimes it takes you outside of the box. Basically, you figure out that you went into a feature that hasn't been a whole thing of it hasn't been designed, and it's like late in production, and like you can't really like depend on the game designer to go back on it and really expand upon it, because they're like already on their next thing and there's no time. So producers, APs are often called at closing periods as well. Um, to cut content or to keep content. Um, and this isn't based on there is numbers and stuff that can support like and help us with this and deciding what's gonna go where. But the reason why producers do this and not the creative side of it is, I mean, to me at this point it's pretty obvious. But it's like producers are supposed to be able to be a bit more well, a lot more cold-blooded than the creative sides, because we have to make sure the game can come out and is in ready to play. Um, in a perfect world, we'd love to have the creatives go crazy and do whatever they want. So, I can only think of one studio in the world, I think, where that happens, which is Rockstar. Um, uh, no, usually you don't have the luxury of, like having 10-year
Yeah.
production cycles. And so what happens is part of being an AP is deciding what's gonna just have to you get what you're gonna drop. What is what can we deliver and what can we not?
Yeah.
And then there's the part with once you're in production and closer to the end of production and going to post-production, is you work a lot with QA and QC teams. And so this is you might remember I mentioned working with QA on my game, the KLAUS, and we had no experience. Now I have a lot of experience of if I could go back in time and do some things very differently, I would do them, because it's this work with QC and QA that's insanely important. If the if the needs for the master for PlayStation were high for our game KLAUS, the needs for a game like a AAA game like Assassin's Creed are massive, galaxy sized. And game crashers, showstoppers, that we call them, things that is a lot can literally break the game for you, and they can, anything you introduce after a certain period of time is very tricky. So this is something we come into, like we're like, sometimes the creatives are not in love with us because we have to cut down these things. But it's just how it works. It's the way we're able to release games.
Yep.
And it's in that part is usually in the post production process is where closers really come in and finally shape down the game. Like they sculpt down the game to what we can do for sure and finish it on time and release it on time. So that's some of the, I know it still sounds broad, but like to make it a little bit more real for you, like I personally, because our team at top was about like 40 people, you're all in one place. Game studios are like you imagine them, they're just like open spaced, everyone's in one place, and one big part of it was keeping the morale of everything, because making a big AAA game, unless you are the creative director or something like that, it's easy to lose yourself and to feel like you're just a cog in a system. Keeping Making sure that you don't feel this way and that you are contributing in a massive way is something that we try to take a role in as APs, um, of making sure the recognition is there. Um, Obviously, the recognition is going to be there at the end of the day in the credits, and we're going to have a shipped game on our name. But it's important to keep these things in perspective, because like the favorite parts of my job is like when we present, when we have show and tells at the end of our milestones, and we're showing what we did, and showing what my team did, and boosting this confidence is probably the most important part of my job.
That's
Funny, in all
awesome.
of that, I caught that, something you said, and a lot of people out here in the Twitterverse need to learn is that when somebody says, "Oh, that's an easy fix," they should just be able to do that. And one thing you point out is that
Mm.
there's no easy fix. It's not, let's go flip a flag and it's done, because every system affects every other system. Like you said, it's an
Yeah.
umbrella. You know.
That's a great point. People don't get the process, but at the same time, like you don't get to be like, hey, you don't get the process though. Like,
Right. Yeah.
like, no, you're right. Like, we should fix things, and we should get
Yeah.
on things. And this is something, again, I have to come to a connection to films, and any really, like, you can broaden this story to be
Yeah.
cover every industry in the world. But it's once you do something as a job, um, y- you know, there's always a hidden part from the customers. And this is something that LA Film School really like taught me, is like try to try to just be in the moment as a fan. Like, you try to create the game that you want to play, or create the movie
Right.
that you want to watch, and shut down the noise, because there's going to be a lot of
Yeah.
noise, and w-
Yeah.
Ubisoft gets a lot of attention, not so positive, especially recently.
Yeah.
And it's very important to just shut down this noise, like
Yeah.
in your mind, because you're like, we love what we do.
Right.
There's not a single person that does this like, oh, I'm doing this just for the money. Because to be
Mhm.
honest, like if you're in it for the money in video games, like it's probably not the best industry to be in. Like it's not like we're suffering here, but it's like
Yeah.
other IT industries pay better rates and whatever. Um, but games is one of the only ones where you can like really feel like a fanboy and an employee at the same time.
Yeah.
And so like it is part of that. It's like, yeah, I can't like, people don't know some of the things that go,
Yeah.
because we can't just fix, but at the same time, like we feel with the
Right.
gamers so much, because we are them at the same time all the time. I mean, I do this. I play Helldivers a lot.
Yeah.
I play Cyberpunk now. I'm playing Cyberpunk now. Before that, I'm always playing something, and I'm always like, like, I wish this. I remember like Cyberpunk came out, the first version. I was so pissed off at that version. I was like, I kind of fix this. You don't have like GTA 3 has more advanced features than you have in this game now. And I call myself. I'm like, I can't. like I can't imagine what these people like. They're making their second biggest triple
Mm,
A like of that size, CD
yeah.
Projekt Red, and it's a cyberpunk based on
Hmm.
this hugely ambitious
Yeah.
tabletop RPG. And like yeah, actually, like maybe they were mistakes for sure on the top being made, but
Yeah.
you can't like fault developers for it because everything's being made with
Right. Yep.
extreme amounts of love.
You know, before we end the interview, I do want to kind of sum up and agree with both of you here. Is that when it comes to the creative industry, especially if, if you're not, in the executive branch of any company, right? If you're like an employee in the creative side, whether it be comic books, whether it be animation, whether it be a video game developer, a lot of people do it for the love of it, because to become if they did it to become super rich and super famous, it's very hard to get to that point. Very few get to that point. It's more about the love of what you do and having fun with what you do, and that's why
Mm,
you do it. And
exactly.
I think that goes for a lot of the creative industry, unless you're the exception and you become the next Kevin Feige or James Gunn. That's a whole different story. But um, it is what it is, and I appreciate, Alex. I just want to tell you that I appreciate everyone in the game industry, everyone in the film industry, because everybody plays a part in making something great. And one thing I want people to realize is that not everything is for everybody either. So like, you may love something, and if somebody doesn't like something, that's okay. Just let them move on and find something else that they enjoy. But there's something in the creative space for everybody. And it's because of guys like you, Alex, that these things happen. So thank you very much for the hard work that you put in, the hours that you put in, and to all your colleagues as well that do a fantastic job just letting us fans have fun and playing what we love. See, I got my video game shirt on. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
thank you.
I'm watching the whole time. And nice, thank you so much, man. Like that kind of this is literally what we kind of live for. Like this kind of
Yeah.
feedback. To hear it so quick is a blessing because I'm gonna communicate this tomorrow to my team. Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell them about the shout out too, because like it, it is exactly what you said. Like just massive amounts of love involved from both sides. And as you said, not everything is for everyone. And if it's not for you, then you just leave it alone instead of
Yeah.
engaging it because there's no like I just that's the only part I don't get about a certain aspect of any
Yeah.
of these in these industries is participating in something you don't like, like and then continuing the hate of it because you don't like you continuously not liking it. There are legit things to communicate and
Right.
complain about, but like there's certain like almost like hate watching like
Yeah.
there's hate playing too like
Yeah.
and like that happens and some people do it because it's also a money maker too like
Yeah.
you can have people on Twitch and stuff like having
Yeah.
whole careers off it, but the problem is like when I just want to really address this because I know it's been happening not with Ubisoft recently, but with some other things like in games, voice actors in Last of Us 2 and Abby's voice actress getting, like hate mail and stuff like
Right.
that. But the same, like that's such a small minority of the people that are doing that. I know that's like a vocal minority, as what you call them. And so that broke my heart. But then the support that she got, Laura Bailey, when it happened, it warmed my heart so much
Yeah.
because it was like there's this protection, like stopped, these are everyone, just as you said, you're one of these people, like both of you are keeping things healthy in these
Yeah.
realms. Because at the end of the day, we're making games and movies, man. Like
Yep.
it's w- like if we fail, like someone's just gonna have a backup, like they're not gonna have fun for a little bit and they're gonna move on for the next
Yeah.
thing. They're not gonna, it's not gonna like lose health over it, sleep over it,
Right.
money over it, except for the little bit you spend in the beginning. But if we're making entertainment, then it's very important to keep that in mind. We're not, we're not doctors or we need to keep having fun with this stuff in order to continue doing it. And it's because of fans like you that give us
Yeah.
support like our mental health is better because of you.
Yeah.
Like it's legit like that.
Yeah. I know for
Because
me,
Mhm.
if I see a movie or play a game that I don't care for, I don't jump on the Twitterverse and start, how can you like this piece of love? No, I'm just that's not for me. I didn't enjoy it, but hey, if it's for you, that's cool.
Yeah,
Then I'm done. And I don't
yeah.
need to sit there and ask you why you can like something or how you can play something. You know,
No, look, and
it's
I'm for all kinds of discussion too, man. I'm
yeah,
even for like it's okay for someone to come in. I've seen people like come in with deconstructions
yeah,
of like why something is bad, and that's actually okay to be like because you're at least like kind of like that person is trying to
yeah,
like start a discussion and so on, and like you're talking about things and why you don't like it. That's okay,
yeah,
like that itself is super interesting because that's how we found out more about each other. But it's like the unnecessary parts, like just hating, like
yeah.
just sending negative energy towards these people and
Yeah,
unnecessarily.
death threats to developers is right out. Okay,
That I don't even want to expand on that because it's just crazy, It's like you said, as I said, it's a game. You're sending death
yeah,
threats, or it's like when I think like I'm like, okay, who would I ever send a death threat to in my life? Would have to be a moral enemy
yeah,
that
yeah,
wronged me in some way. It's like like Indigo Montoya is like prepared to kill my father, prepared to die, kind of thing. But that's it. Like so, that's just
yeah,
something I want to see. I think it's getting better. I think the industry and the gamers, everyone is maturing at the same time, and it's getting better. So I'm really like
yeah.
glad to see that too.
Well, Alex, I definitely want to thank you for coming on and talking with us. I've learned so much from you and your passion with what you do, whether it's films, your indie game, to your trip working on AAA. And I appreciate it so much. And after the interview, just like ask you to hang on for a moment, after we close the recording. But Paul does have an icebreaker question that we
You
ask at
wouldn't
the
call it.
we ask at the end of the interview. I
Okay.
call it icebreaker. Paul
It's not an
says
icebreaker.
it is an ice. Don't listen to Paul. It's an
Icebreakers at the beginning.
icebreaker.
Icebreakers at the beginning. This is
It's
whatever this is. So
we trademark the end icebreaker. There we go, Paul.
Yeah.
okay, the ice
Okay.
is melted, but here's the question. Uh, okay,
Sure.
pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, interesting,
Mm.
sorry.
interesting,
Okay, so
interesting.
I'm so
Uh,
I'm out on Assassin's Creed, but that's okay.
so I'm very open. Like cuisine is. I mentioned that we made a documentary on food and cinema before, like because we like I love food. Like like living in LA, I had such an amazing time with
Yeah.
food. The States in general have such amazing food, and Europe here. But it's like I'm open to it. I had really bad pineapple pizza, but like if you have fresh pineapple that you char a little bit on the grill and you put it with specific ingredients, it can
Yeah.
work. And I'm kind of also a contrarian this way because like why not? Like if you can put pickles on a pizza, you can put I don't know, like there's
No,
pickled
no.
pizzas. But you heard about this? There's pickled pizza now. I really want to try it. I want to try it.
You know what, Alex? That makes me think of something. I think I need to tell you before we end the
Oh,
interview
oh,
because you did documentary on food. We interviewed somebody that was very famous in voice acting, done the Jay Leno. He introduces Jay Leno on every show from the seventh seasons forward. He is the voice of the Riddler. He's the voice of many
mm.
DC characters, so he's a very famous
Oh,
voice
cool.
actor.
Okay.
Can you guess what his favorite topping on pizza is? He's from the Midwest of the United States, and it's a German. In his area in the Midwest, there's a lot of German ancestry and settlement. So it's just that particular town, not the state, just his particular
Uh,
town. They have a favorite
sauerkraut?
top. Yes, how did you guess
Yeah.
that? It's
well, yeah.
sauerkraut.
Even I guess that because you said it
Yeah.
German influence. It's got to be
Yeah,
sauerkraut.
and I guessed it, but because of that, and I mentioned pickles, so I was guessing it was gonna be sour or like a little bit acidic there. I can see them doing it. It's fermented cabbage. It's great. It's a
Yeah.
nice. I don't know, but you see, like that's where I'm a bit more weird out. Like I feel like I would have a pickle pizza rather than a sauerkraut pizza. I don't know why. I have like it's this visions of like before you try a food, like you have you have an idea of it, but then you try it, and then um, it might match it or might not match it. So with sauerkraut, I don't know, but it's been interesting topping for sure. Yeah.
Paul likes mustard on pizza. Just want to put it out there.
It's deli mustard. It's spicy deli mustard, and it's good. Okay, a New Yorker
Okay.
taught that to me. So
Spicy deli mustard. Nice.
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
on
Well,
pepperoni pizza. Yeah, give that a shot. Yeah.
well,
Okay. So while we're sharing that, I'm gonna give you a Serbian thing.
Okay.
So there's this place where you get drunk. If you get drunk and you're like wandering the streets at 2 a.m. There's this pizza place that sells slices and it has a long row of people in front of it. And they put something we call beef salad on the slice, but it's everything but a salad. Like it's this creamy thing with like pulled beef. It's
Oh,
like instead of pork, and it's creamy and has mushrooms and all these things, and you spread it onto the pizza. It's like the biggest crime against pizza you could ever have. Like you guys think like pineapple and like sauerkraut is weird. This is just like you spread this thing, but you have this. It's so good actually because you have enough alcohol in the system. You're like, ah, this is
there you
what I
go.
need. It's so fatty and it's.
Yeah.
But pizza,
Yeah.
pizza is one of those subjects,
Mm,
man.
yep.
Like in
oh yeah.
by people.
Um, well, Alex, thank you so much for hanging out with us, talking to us about your whole career, history, films, video games, and just hang on after the interview. I have some other things I want to ask you real quick. But
For
thank you
sure.
so much. And to everybody watching, leave some comments below, or if you're looking forward to, even if you played Alex's indie game, leave a comment. If you are looking forward to the next Assassin's Creed, leave a comment, whatever it may be. And see you guys later.
Thanks, guys.